Take your place by my side, and we will feast together.
I will never be your queen.
Remember the first time you watched The Lion King? The way you felt when Mufasa died? Or when Simba finally took his place as king? Those emotions are about to hit you all over again. But this time, for a character you never expected, Scar. Because today, we're going to show you a side of Scar you've never seen before. A Scar who loved, who lost, and whose broken heart set in motion the events that would change the Pride Lands forever. Get ready to feel sympathy for the devil. We know Scar as the villain of The Lion King, always plotting, always scheming, but what if there's more to his story than we ever realized? What if Scar's obsession with power wasn't just about ruling the Pride Lands? What if it was about something deeper? Something we've all missed all this time, because when we really look at Scar, we see a lion who's always alone, always on the outside looking in, but what if he wasn't always like that? What if there was a time when Scar was happy, when he had someone by his side? Picture this, a young Scar and Sarabi growing up together in the Pride. They're the best of friends, always playing, always laughing, chasing each other through the tall grass of the savannah under the warm African sun. Maybe they even start to fall in love. You can almost see it, can't you? The way Scar looks at Sarabi with those green eyes full of hope, and maybe Sarabi looks back at him the same way, but then something changes. Everything Mufasa becomes king, and he chooses Sarabi as his queen, and suddenly everything Scar thought he had slips away like sand through his paws. Can you imagine how that must have felt for Scar to watch the lioness he loved choose his brother instead of him, to see Sarabi nuzzling Mufasa, standing by his side as they look out over the Pride Lands together? It must have broken his heart and turned all that love into bitterness and jealousy, because now when Scar looks at Mufasa, he doesn't just see the king who took his throne, he sees the lion who took his love. And what about Sarabi? Did she have feelings for Scar too? Did she struggle with her choice between the two brothers? Maybe she chose Mufasa because he was going to be king, because that's what was best for the Pride. But what if her heart was torn? This changes everything. We thought we knew about Scar's motivations, doesn't it? His hatred for Mufasa, his resentment towards Simba. It wasn't just about the throne, it was about winning back the love he lost. Can you see how this would eat away at Scar year after year, watching Mufasa and Sarabi together, seeing them have a cub of their own while he's left all alone with nothing but his anger and his schemes? But wait, there's more to this story, because Scar's love for Sarabi didn't just disappear. It turned into something darker, something that would change the Pride Lands forever. Because when Scar finally kills Mufasa and takes the throne, he probably thinks this is his chance to win Sarabi back, but she stays loyal to Mufasa's memory. She rejects Scar again, and his resentment only grows and grows. What if this is why he lets the hyenas take over the Pride Lands? He's punishing Sarabi and all the other lions for rejecting him. He wants them to suffer like he suffered all these years alone and unloved. And when Simba comes back to challenge him, Scar doesn't just see a threat to his power. He sees the son of the lion who stole his love, the living reminder of everything he lost. It's a tragedy of unrequited love that spans generations, shaping everything that happens in the Pride Lands. And when we look at it this way, we start to see Scar not just as a villain, but as a lion whose heart was broken, whose love turned to hate because he couldn't have the one thing he wanted most. So Scar's heart breaks when Sarabi chooses Mufasa, but what happens next? Because this is where everything changes for Scar and the whole Pride Lands. We see him become bitter, isolated, spending more and more time alone, plotting, scheming. But what if every time he looks at Mufasa and Sarabi together, it's like a knife in his heart, reminding him of what he lost? And then Simba is born, and it's the final blow, because now there's a cub that looks just like Mufasa, a constant reminder of Scar's pain. And this is when Scar's love starts to turn into something else, something darker, more dangerous. He doesn't just want the throne anymore, he wants to erase everything that reminds him of his loss. Think about it when Scar says, "Long live the king," before pushing Mufasa off the cliff. What if he's not just talking about power? What if he's eliminating his romantic rival? And when he tries to have Simba killed, is it really just about securing his place as king, or is it about getting rid of the living proof of Sarabi's choice? But Scar's plan doesn't end there, because he's not done trying to win Sarabi back. And what he does next will shock you, because what if Scar's alliance with the hyenas wasn't just about gaining power? What if it was about finding a family that accepted him when his own pride rejected him? We know from The Lion King that hyenas are seen as outcasts, just like Scar, so maybe he felt a connection with them that he never had with the other lions. But what if there's more to this partnership than we realized? What if Scar's plan wasn't just to rule the Pride Lands, but to create a place where both lions and hyenas could live together as equals? But wait, there's another twist to Scar's story that changes everything we thought we knew about him, because what if Scar wasn't always called Scar? What if he had a different name before the incident that gave him his trademark injury? We know from official Disney material that Scar's original name was Taka, which means waste or want in Swahili. But what if there's a reason his parents gave him such a cruel name? What if Scar was never meant to be born at all, and his whole life was shaped by feeling unwanted from the very beginning? This changes everything about how we see Scar's actions, doesn't it? Because now we're not just looking at a villain, we're looking at a lion who's been rejected and unwanted his whole life, first by his parents, then by Sarabi, and finally by his own pride. And suddenly his desire for power, his need to be king, makes so much more sense, because it's not just about ruling, it's about finally being wanted, finally being important to someone, even if it's just the hyenas. And when we look at Scar's reign as king through this lens, everything takes on a new meaning, because what if letting the hyenas into the Pride Lands wasn't just about rewarding his allies? What if it was about creating a new kind of pride, one where outcasts like him could finally belong? But Sarabi and the other lions couldn't accept this new way of life, and their rejection only fueled Scar's bitterness even more. But here's the biggest shock of all. What if Scar's true nature was completely different from what we've been led to believe? Because what if Scar was actually trying to save the Pride Lands all along? We know from nature documentaries that lion prides can become inbred if new blood isn't introduced. So what if Scar recognized this problem, and his alliance with the hyenas was actually an attempt to diversify the gene pool and ensure the long-term survival of both species? But his methods were too extreme for the other lions to accept. But wait, there's more to Scar's story than we ever imagined. Because what if his reign as king wasn't just about power or revenge? What if it was his last desperate attempt to win Sarabi's heart? Remember that scene where Scar offers to let Sarabi be his queen? We all thought it was just about consolidating his power. But what if it was something much deeper? What if it was Scar's way of saying, I still love you after all these years? Can you imagine how conflicted Sarabi must have felt in that moment, faced with the lion she might have once loved, now twisted by bitterness and hate, but still reaching out to her, offering her a chance to rule by his side? But Sarabi stays loyal to Mufasa's memory, and that's when everything really starts to fall apart in the Pride Lands. Because Scar's not just a bad king, he's a king consumed by heartbreak. Every decision he makes is clouded by his feelings for Sarabi, his jealousy, his pain, and his desperate need to prove himself worthy of her love. And all this time, Sarabi watches as the lion she might have once cared for destroys everything she loves. It's like a tragedy playing out right before our eyes. And here's where things get really interesting, because what if Scar's alliance with the hyenas wasn't just about gaining allies? What if it was about creating a new kind of pride, one where outcasts like him could finally belong? We know from nature documentaries that lion prides can become inbred if new blood isn't introduced. So what if Scar recognized this problem, and his plan was actually an attempt to diversify the gene pool and ensure the long-term survival of both species? But his methods were too extreme for the other lions to accept. Can you see how this changes everything we thought we knew about Scar? Because now we're not just looking at a villain, we're looking at a lion who's trying to save his pride in the only way he knows how. But he's so blinded by his love for Sarabi and his pain at being rejected that he can't see how his actions are hurting the very ones he's trying to protect. It's like a perfect storm of good intentions and terrible execution. And all this time, Sarabi is caught in the middle, torn between her loyalty to Mufasa's memory and the possibility that somewhere deep down, the Scar she once knew still exists. Can you imagine the weight of that responsibility on her shoulders, knowing that her choice could determine the fate of the entire Pride Lands? It's no wonder she stays strong and refuses to give in to Scar's demands. But here's the real kicker. What if Scar's offer to let Sarabi be his queen wasn't just about power or love? What if it was about redemption? What if deep down Scar believed that with Sarabi by his side, he could become a better lion, a better king? He could heal the wounds of the past and create a future for the Pride Lands that was better than anything Mufasa could have imagined. But Sarabi's rejection shatters that last hope, and that's when Scar truly becomes the villain we see in the movie. It's like watching a tragedy unfold in slow motion, because we can see how every choice, every action is driven by love and pain and the desperate need to belong, but it all goes so terribly wrong. And by the time Simba returns to challenge Scar for the throne, it's too late. The damage has been done and there's no going back. So we've seen how Scar's love for Sarabi shaped everything in The Lion King, but what about after Scar's defeat? What legacy did this hidden love story leave behind? Because when we look at The Lion King 2, we see characters still dealing with the aftermath of Scar's reign, but what if they're really dealing with the aftermath of his broken heart? Think about Zira. She's so devoted to Scar's memory, but why? What if she knew about his feelings for Sarabi? What if she understood his pain on a deeper level than anyone else in the Pride? Because maybe Zira loved Scar the way he loved Sarabi, and she saw how that unrequited love destroyed him. And what about Kovu? We always thought he looked like Scar, but what if the resemblance goes deeper than just appearance? What if Kovu inherited some of Scar's capacity for deep passionate love, but also his potential for pain and darkness? Because when we watch Kovu fall in love with Kiara, doesn't it remind us a little of young Scar and Sarabi before everything went wrong? It's like history repeating itself, but this time there's a chance for a different ending. But wait, there's something even bigger going on here, because what if Scar's connection to the hyenas wasn't just about gaining power? What if it went all the way back to his cubhood? What if Scar's scars weren't from a buffalo like we thought, but from saving a hyena cub when he was young? Can you imagine how that one act of kindness could have shaped his entire life? Maybe that's why he felt such a connection to the hyenas. Maybe he saw them as kindred spirits, outcasts, just like him. And here's where things get really interesting. Because what if Scar's plan wasn't just about taking over the Pride Lands? What if he was trying to bring two outcast groups together, the hyenas and the unwanted second son of the king? But it all went wrong because of his broken heart over Sarabi. This changes everything we thought we knew about Scar's motivations, doesn't it? But there's one last question we need to ask ourselves, one that will make you see the Lion King in a whole new light. What if Scar and Mufasa were actually working together all along? We saw how Scar's reign led to destruction, but what if that was the plan all along? Because in nature, savanna ecosystems actually benefit from occasional periods of destruction. So what if Scar's villain act was just that, an act? What if he and Mufasa planned everything, knowing Simba would return stronger than ever to lead a revitalized Pride Lands? Can you imagine how this changes everything we thought we knew about The Lion King? It's not just a story about good versus evil anymore. It's a story about sacrifice and the greater good, and the pain of keeping secrets from those you love. Because if this is true, why didn't Mufasa ever tell Simba the truth? Why did he let his son believe his uncle was a monster, when really Scar might have been the biggest hero of them all? So what if Scar really did love Sarabi all along? What if this hidden romance was the real heart of the Lion King that we never saw? Because when we look at Scar and Sarabi's interactions now, we see something different, don't we? We see the pain in Scar's voice, the sadness in Sarabi's eyes. It's like a whole new story is unfolding right before us, and it changes everything we thought we knew about the Circle of Life. Because now we're not just watching a story about good versus evil, we're watching a tragedy of love lost and the terrible things it can make us do. But wait, there's more, because what if this isn't just about Scar and Sarabi? What if their story is still shaping the Pride Lands even after Scar's gone? Think about Kovu and Kiara. Isn't their love story kind of like a do-over for Scar and Sarabi? But this time with a happy ending. It's like the Circle of Life is giving love another chance.